The rain was drizzling that day, streetlights blurred into long yellow lines. Williams kept his head down, clutching his old bag and thinking of two things: what he will eat when he gets home, and the big dream he was afraid to say out loud, becoming a pilot one day. He had no parents to cheer him on anymore. Armed robbers had taken them from him, and since then every night felt longer than the last. He almost didn't see her. A frail young lady, maybe 20, sat on the curb near a closed kiosk. She was soaked through, shivering inside a small torn cardigan that looked like it belonged to a child. Her knees hugged her chest. Her lips moved, but the rain swallowed her words. Williams glanced once, then looked away. His shoes squished with each step. He told himself he had nothing to give. He told himself he would be late. He told himself he needed to save his strength for tomorrow's shift at the construction site. Then a Bentley stopped beside him. The door opened, and a tall man stepped out with a wide black umbrella. Even in the rain, the man's voice was calm and clear. "You, young man." Williams turned. The man's face was kind but firm, the kind of face that made you want to listen. "Yes, sir?" Williams asked. The man pointed to the shivering lady. "Take off your cardigan," he said. "Swap it with hers. Wrap it around her. Do it now." The words felt like thunder. Williams blinked. His cardigan was the only warm thing he owned. It wasn't much, just a grey, woolly sweater with frayed cuffs, but it kept the wind off his bones. He hesitated. The man didn't shout. He just tilted the umbrella so it covered the lady, and the rain began to soak his own shoulders. Water slid down his cheeks, and still he waited. Williams swallowed. He pulled off his cardigan. His fingers shook, not from the cold now, but from the choice. He walked back to the girl and crouched. "Please," he said softly. "Let me help you." Up close, he could see her face. She had gentle eyes and cracked lips. She looked like someone who had fought too many battles in too short a life. She tried to stand, but her legs trembled. Williams draped his cardigan over her shoulders and pulled the buttons together, making the old sweater into a warm shell around her. The girl looked up at them both through the rain. "Thank you," she whispered. "My name is Amanda." The man shifted the umbrella to cover the two of them. He stayed out in the rain, getting wet without a care. His voice turned soft. "I'm Johnson," he said. "What are you doing out here alone, Amanda?" Amanda swallowed. "I have nowhere to go, sir. I'm an orphan. After my parents died, my uncles sold my father's house. They told me to leave. I have been sleeping on the streets." Johnson's jaw tightened. His eyes glistened as rain traced lines across his face. "How old are you?" 20, she said. "I try to be brave, but the nights are cold." Johnson nodded, then looked at Williams. "And you, son? Why did you walk past her at first?" Williams could not hold the man's gaze. His voice came out rough. "My parents were killed by armed robbers. I work at a construction site now. I was thinking of food, and of a dream that is running away from me." He took a breath. "I want to be a pilot, but dreams need money. And His voice trailed off. Johnson did not scold him. He stepped closer and put one hand on Williams's shoulder. "You were honest. That matters." Then he did something that stunned Williams even more than the Bentley. Johnson slid the umbrella fully over Amanda and Williams and stood in the open rain, his fine shirt clinging to him, his shoes filling with water, as if he were the one who needed help, not them. He raised his voice over the storm. "Driver, open the back door." The Bentley's back door unlocked with a soft click. Warm air, smelling faintly of leather and vanilla, spilled out. Johnson bent toward Amanda. "Can you walk?" Amanda nodded, shaky but willing. Williams helped her stand. Together, under the umbrella, they took small steps to the car. Williams held the cardigan closed at her collarbone so the wind couldn't steal its warmth. Inside, the seats felt like gentle hands. The driver handed Amanda a clean towel and a bottle of water. Johnson climbed in last, leaving small puddles where he didn't care. "Take us home," Johnson told the driver. "Slow and careful." The car pulled away from the curb. Outside, Lagos flashed by in wet streaks. Inside, the world felt like a pause between storms. "Where is home for you?" Johnson asked Amanda. She looked at her hands. "Nowhere. I sleep near the market when the guards don't chase me." Johnson turned to Williams. "And you? Do you live alone?" "Yes, sir. A small room close to the site. I pay weekly." Johnson drummed his fingers once on his knee. not in anger, but in thought. "I want to tell you something," he said at last. "You made a mistake when you walked past her, but I believe in people who can learn fast. The world needs men who can turn around." Williams felt his throat tighten. He stared at the man's face, trying to understand who he really was. "Sir," he said quietly, "why are you helping us?" Johnson gave a small smile. "Because someone once stood in the rain for me." Lightning cracked in the distance, bright as a camera flash. The driver slowed at a junction. Johnson's phone buzzed, but he ignored it. He reached into the center console and pulled out a soft blue blanket, passing it to Amanda. "Wrap this over the cardigan," he said. "We'll get you dry soon." "Thank you," Amanda whispered, eyes shining. "Thank you." Williams watched her tuck the blanket under her chin. He felt a pang in his chest, something between relief and shame. He had almost missed this moment. He had almost walked on. "Sir," Williams said, voice low. "What is your full name?" "Johnson," he said. "People call me Chief Johnson sometimes. I run a company. Veronica is my wife. She's at home tonight." Williams blinked. Chief Johnson, a name he had heard on the radio, in the news, whispered in markets when people talked about jobs and blessings and big projects. A billionaire. Sitting beside him, in a wet shirt, on a rainy night. Before Williams could speak, Amanda's breathing changed. It quickened, then slowed, then quickened again. She pressed the blanket to her stomach and winced. "Are you in pain?" Johnson asked, leaning forward. "She hasn't eaten today," Williams said, panic rising. "Maybe yesterday too." The driver flicked his eyes to the mirror. Johnson's voice stayed calm but urgent. "We'll be home in 10 minutes. Veronica will know what to do." He reached for his phone to call ahead. That was when a black SUV swerved into their lane from behind and flashed its lights once, twice, 3 times like a warning. The driver's hands tightened on the wheel. "Sir," the driver said, "that car has been behind us since we left the kiosk." Johnson turned, eyes narrowing as the SUV drew level with the Bentley. Rain streaked across both windows. For a heartbeat, Williams saw the face of the man in the other car, hard eyes, a twist of anger, and a scar that cut through one eyebrow. Amanda saw it too. Her fingers crushed the blanket. Her voice came out as a breath. "Uncle." The SUV's window lowered a few inches. A fist tapped something metallic against the glass. The driver whispered, "Chief, should I speed up?" Johnson's gaze stayed on the SUV. He raised his phone, thumb hovering over a number labeled Veronica Home, then stopped and lowered it slowly, mind racing. "Everyone," he said softly, "stay calm. Do not open your door." The SUV drifted closer, pressing them toward the median. Rain roared. Tires hissed. Williams reached for Amanda's hand. The SUV's passenger leaned toward the gap in the window and spoke 5 words that froze the whole car. "Give us the girl. Now." The SUV's headlights cut through the rain like 2 blazing eyes. Johnson's grip on the armrest tightened, and for the first time, Williams saw a flicker of fear in the calm billionaire's eyes. Amanda gasped softly. Her lips trembled as she whispered again, "Uncle." Johnson turned to her sharply. "You know him?" Her voice was barely a breath. "He's the one who sold my father's house. He said he would take care of me, but he wanted something else." Her eyes filled with tears. "When I refused, he threw me out." Williams's stomach churned. "Sir, we can't let him take her." The SUV swerved closer, nearly brushing the Bentley. The driver gritted his teeth and pressed the accelerator, but Johnson's hand shot out. "No, don't speed. Stay steady. Let me think." Outside, rain thudded against the glass like fists. Johnson's mind raced. He couldn't risk Amanda getting hurt, not after what she'd already suffered. He reached for his phone again, this time dialing a private line. "Inspector Ade," he said firmly. "Yes, it's Johnson. There's a black SUV following us on 3rd Mainland Bridge license plate. Hold on." He glanced toward the rear mirror. The digits were smeared by rain, but Williams leaned closer and read them out loud, voice shaking. "KJA 44, something 7. "That's enough," Johnson said quickly. "We're heading to Ikoyi. Send a patrol immediately." He ended the call and turned to Amanda, who was hugging herself tightly. "Listen to me," he said gently. "You're safe now. I promise." The SUV suddenly accelerated and pulled ahead of them, blocking the lane. The driver slammed on the brakes and the Bentley skidded sideways. Amanda screamed. Williams threw his arm across her to shield her as the car came to a jerking stop. The SUV door opened. A man in a brown suit stepped out, holding an umbrella in one hand and something that gleamed like a metal pipe in the other. He walked toward them slowly, his shoes splashing through puddles. Johnson's jaw clenched. "Stay inside," he whispered. "Don't open the doors." The man stopped right beside Johnson's window and tapped it with the pipe. The sound was louder than the rain. "Chief Johnson," the man said through the glass, his voice sharp and cruel. "You're a big man, but you've picked up what doesn't belong to you." Johnson rolled the window down halfway. "She's a young girl, not property," he said. His tone was firm but calm. "If you have something to say it properly." The man sneered. "That girl stole from me. She's a thief. She ran away with my money and my brother's gold wristwatch." Amanda shook her head wildly. "That's not true. He's lying." Williams's fists curled. "Sir, don't believe him," he said to Johnson. "She was out in the cold with nothing. Does she look like someone who stole gold?" The man smirked. "You think I'm playing, boy?" He raised the pipe higher. "Get out, both of you. Now." Johnson didn't move. "You will not touch them," he said quietly. For a tense second, everything froze: the rain, the air, even the sound of cars in the distance. Then, from somewhere down the bridge, came the blare of a siren. The man's expression changed. His eyes darted toward the sound. Johnson smiled faintly. "That would be the police." The man cursed under his breath and ran back to his SUV. He sped away just as two patrol vehicles appeared at the far end of the road. Amanda burst into tears, burying her face in her hands. Williams pulled her close, his heart still racing. Johnson let out a shaky sigh and leaned back in his seat. "Drive us home," he said to the driver softly. "And be careful." By the time they reached Johnson's mansion, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. The tall iron gate opened automatically, revealing a wide driveway lined with lights. The mansion itself glowed like something out of a dream, warm, golden, and impossibly grand. As soon as they entered, a woman in a long robe hurried down the stairs. She was graceful and kind-looking, her hair wrapped in a silk scarf. "Johnson," she exclaimed, "you're drenched." "What happened?" Johnson smiled faintly. "Veronica, please, get some warm towels and soup ready. These two need it more than I do." Veronica turned toward Williams and Amanda, her face softening. "Oh, you poor children, come in, don't stand there." She led them to the guest lounge, a cozy space with soft sofas and a crackling fireplace. The warmth made Amanda's body relax at last. She looked around with wide eyes. "I've never seen a house like this," she whispered. Williams smiled faintly. "Neither have I." When Veronica returned with towels, Amanda tried to thank her, but her voice broke mid-sentence. Veronica only nodded gently. "No need for words, dear. You're safe now." Later that night, after Amanda fell asleep on the couch, Williams sat quietly in the corner. Johnson walked in, now wearing dry clothes and holding 2 cups of tea. He handed one to Williams. "Sir," Williams said hesitantly, "I don't know how to thank you. You didn't even know us." Johnson smiled faintly. "I didn't need to. I saw something in you, the same thing someone once saw in me when I was young and foolish. A second chance." Williams stared at the fire. "When you told me to swap my cardigan, I thought it was just a lesson in kindness. But now, I realize it changed everything." Johnson nodded. "You'd be surprised how one small act can shift the course of a life." He paused, studying the boy's face. "What did you say your dream was again?" Williams looked up, eyes shining. "To be a pilot, sir." Johnson chuckled softly. "A fine dream. Maybe it's time someone helped you fly." Williams froze, not sure he'd heard right. "Sir?" Johnson leaned back in his chair. "Tomorrow, I'll make a few calls. I know some people at the Nigerian College of Aviation. You'll start there soon." Williams blinked, disbelief washing over him. You'd really do that?" Johnson smiled. "Yes, but promise me something. When life gives you wings, don't forget to lift someone else." Tears filled Williams's eyes. He nodded quickly. "I promise, sir." Just then, Amanda stirred in her sleep and murmured softly, "Thank you." Johnson glanced at her, then at the fire. His eyes grew distant. "You know," he said, almost to himself, "Veronica and I have been praying for children for 10 years. Maybe God sent you two to remind us he still answers prayers, just not always the way we expect." Williams looked at him, unsure how to respond. Johnson smiled again, but this time there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. "Rest now, son. Tomorrow begins a new chapter for both of you." Outside, the rain finally stopped, but far away, on the other side of the city, the man in the brown suit parked his SUV under a bridge, wiped the fog from his window, and made a call. "Boss," he said quietly, "Chief Johnson has her." "The girl," a deep voice answered on the other end. "Good, don't rush. We'll get her back. And this time, make sure Johnson learns not to meddle in family business." The man nodded, eyes glinting in the dark. The line clicked dead, and the night swallowed the sound of his laughter. Morning came with a golden glow that slipped through the mansion's curtains. For the first time in years, Williams woke up in a real bed. The mattress felt soft, the air smelled of lavender, and sunlight spilled gently across the room. For a moment, he thought he was still dreaming until a quiet knock came at the door. "Williams," a voice called softly. It was Veronica. "Breakfast is ready." He sat up quickly, remembering where he was. Chief Johnson's mansion. The night before the rain, the SUV, Amanda's trembling, all of it flashed back like a movie in his mind. He dressed quickly, brushing his hands over the neatly folded shirt Veronica had given him. When he stepped out, Amanda was already sitting at the long dining table, dressed in a simple blue gown. She looked fresh, her hair brushed neatly, though her eyes still carried traces of sorrow. Chief Johnson sat at the head of the table, reading a newspaper. He looked up when Williams walked in and smiled warmly. "Good morning, my boy. Come, sit." Williams hesitated. "Sir, I don't want to." "Nonsense," Johnson interrupted. "Your family now. Sit and eat." Veronica served them steaming plates of yam porridge and tea. "You'll need your strength," she said, smiling. "Johnson and I have something to tell you both after breakfast." "Is the fault?" Amanda's eyes flicked up nervously. "Something to tell us?" Johnson folded his newspaper and looked at them with a serious but gentle gaze. "Last night, I saw two young people who reminded me of what kindness can do even when life is cruel. My wife and I have been blessed in many ways, but there's something we've been praying for. We can't have children." He paused, his voice softening. "But I believe God sends families in many forms." Williams looked at him, confused. "Sir, what are you saying?" Johnson leaned forward slightly. "I'm saying, from this day, this house is your home. Both of you." Amanda's eyes widened. "You mean?" "Yes," Veronica said, smiling through tears. "We'd like to take you in as our children if you'll let us." For a moment, silence filled the room. William stared down at his hands, overwhelmed. Amanda covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. "But why us?" Williams whispered. "We're just," Johnson interrupted gently. "You're not just anything. You are hope. And I want to give you a future." Amanda broke down completely, crying quietly as Veronica pulled her into an embrace. Williams tried to speak, but couldn't find words. He simply nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. That morning marked the beginning of a new life. Within weeks, Williams started preparing for admission into the Nigerian College of Aviation. Johnson personally made the call to the admissions director. Amanda, too, began to study for her university entrance exams, with Veronica helping her every evening. But not everyone in Johnson's world was happy about it. One afternoon, while Williams was reading in the study, a man in a dark suit entered unannounced. He was Johnson's business partner, Mr. Desmond, tall, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Johnson," Desmond said curtly, ignoring Williams. "I need a word." Johnson excused himself and stepped into the hall. Williams could still hear their voices through the half-open door. "You can't be serious," Desmond said. "Taking in strangers? A street boy and a girl you barely know? They're not strangers anymore," Johnson replied evenly. "They're family." Desmond scoffed. "You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. People will talk. You're a billionaire, Johnson. You can't just bring orphans into your house." "I don't care what people say," Johnson said firmly. "I've made my decision." Desmond's voice dropped lower. "You're making a mistake. That girl's past could ruin your reputation. You don't even know who's after her." Johnson paused. "What do you mean by that?" Desmond smiled faintly. "Just be careful, old friend. Not every orphan is as innocent as they look." He walked away, leaving Johnson standing in silence. Days turned into weeks, and the house filled with laughter again. Veronica would often watch Amanda and Williams studying together in the garden, smiling quietly to herself. They were growing, healing, and for the first time in a decade, so was her husband. One evening, Johnson gathered everyone in the living room. "I have news," he said proudly. "Williams, you've been accepted into the Nigerian College of Aviation. You start next month." Williams froze, then stood up so fast his chair nearly fell over. Sir, thank you. Thank you so much." Johnson laughed heartily and hugged him. "You earned it, son." Amanda clapped her hands, beaming through tears. "I told you, Williams, you'd fly someday." Later that night, as the house grew quiet, Williams walked out onto the balcony. The city lights sparkled below. Amanda joined him, wrapping her cardigan around her shoulders, the same one he had given her that rainy night, now neatly washed and folded. "You know," she said softly, "I still can't believe all this is real. A warm bed, real food, people who care." Williams nodded. "Sometimes I feel like if I close my eyes, I'll wake up back on the street." Amanda smiled sadly. "You won't. Not this time." They stood in silence, watching the stars. The following month came quickly. Williams began his aviation training, while Amanda received her university admission letter to study software engineering. Veronica and Johnson were the proudest parents anyone could imagine. But happiness often draws the eyes of envy. One cloudy afternoon, a black SUV parked across from the mansion. Inside, the same man with the scar watched through binoculars. His phone buzzed. "Yes?" he said. A deep voice answered. "She's doing well, I see." So the billionaire took them both in. "Yes, boss." "Ah, good," the voice said coldly. "Wait for my signal. I want Johnson to lose everything, starting with that girl." The call ended. The man smirked and leaned back in his seat. "Soon," he murmured. Months later, the mansion celebrated again, but this time for another reason. Veronica, after years of waiting, was pregnant. The doctors called it a miracle. Johnson could barely speak when he heard the news. Amanda and Williams rushed home from school to see her. She held their hands, eyes glowing. "You both prayed for me," she said, "and God answered." Johnson looked at them with tears in his eyes. "You see, children, kindness always comes home." The family knelt together and prayed a moment so peaceful it felt heaven sent. But as the rain began to fall outside again that night, Williams felt something uneasy stir inside him. He couldn't explain it, but the sound of distant thunder made his heart beat faster. Maybe it was nothing, or maybe, deep down, he knew storms always return, and this time it would test everything they had built. The twins came into the world on a rainy evening, the same kind of night that had once changed Williams's and Amanda's lives forever. Veronica's cries echoed through the hospital halls, followed by the newborn wails of a baby boy and a baby girl. Johnson stood frozen for a moment, then fell to his knees, tears pouring down his face. "Jerry and Jessica," Veronica whispered weakly as the nurse placed the babies in her arms. "After your parents," Johnson said softly, remembering his late father and mother, who had died in a plane crash years ago. When Williams and Amanda arrived at the hospital, they found Johnson sitting beside Veronica's bed, his face glowing like a man reborn. "They're beautiful," Amanda said, tears rolling down her cheeks as she held baby Jessica. "She looks just like you, Ma." "And Jerry looks like you, sir," Williams added with a smile. Johnson looked up at them both. "You two have been my children for years now. But seeing you here, sharing this moment with us, I realize something." "What's that, sir?" Amanda asked. "That family isn't about blood," he said softly. "It's about love, sacrifice, and standing together through the rain." They didn't know then that another storm was already brewing, one far darker than the one outside. 3 weeks later, the mansion buzzed with joy. There were visitors, gifts, and laughter. Williams had completed his aviation program's first year and was already being praised by his tutors for his brilliance. Amanda, too, was excelling at the university, designing her first software project. Johnson and Veronica couldn't be prouder, but Desmond Johnson's business partner had other plans. He sat in his office, flipping through papers, his expression cold. A man in a brown suit entered quietly, the same scarred man from the SUV. "You failed to take the girl," Desmond said. "She was protected," the man replied. "Chief Johnson has guards now." Desmond smirked. Of course he does. But protection can't stop whispers. I want people to talk, spread stories, that the girl he took in is a fraud, that the boy stole money before joining aviation school. We'll destroy their image, not their lives. The man nodded. Consider it done. A few weeks later, Williams returned home to surprising news. Johnson had invited him to speak at a youth conference about perseverance. It was a big opportunity, televised, attended by dignitaries, and even covered by national media. But that night, something strange happened. A call came in to the house's landline from an unknown number. Amanda answered. Hello? A low male voice spoke. You think you can hide forever? Tell your billionaire to watch his back. Amanda froze. Who is this? Click. The line went dead. When she told Johnson, his face darkened. Ignore them, he said. There are people who hate seeing others do good. But Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that the voice sounded familiar. The day of the youth conference arrived bright and clear. Williams stood backstage in a crisp navy suit, trembling with nervous excitement. He could see the audience through the curtains, hundreds of faces, cameras flashing, even government officials in attendance. Chief Johnson stepped beside him and smiled. Are you ready? Williams swallowed. I hope so. You were once a boy who had nothing, Johnson said gently, but you gave your last warmth to someone else. That's the heart of a leader. Go out there and tell the world your story. When Williams walked onto the stage, the applause was deafening. He spoke from his heart about kindness, loss, and the night that changed his life. He ended his speech with tears in his eyes. Sometimes the people we walk past are the very people God sent to change our destiny. That rainy night, I met a billionaire who didn't just give me shelter. He gave me wings. The hall rose in applause. Cameras flashed. The moment was perfect, until a journalist raised his hand and shouted, Mr. Williams, is it true you were caught stealing from your former construction site before Chief Johnson took you in? The room fell silent. Williams froze. What? The reporter held up a paper. I have a report from a foreman claiming you ran away after taking 250,000 naira from site funds. That's a lie, Williams shouted, heart pounding. I never. Then how did you suddenly end up living in a billionaire's mansion? Another voice jeered. The murmurs spread fast. Cameras turned from admiration to suspicion. Johnson stood up from the front row, fury in his eyes. Enough. This event is about inspiration, not slander, but the damage was done. Social media picked up the moment instantly. Within hours, headlines read, Construction worker turned pilot exposed. Billionaire's adopted son in alleged theft scandal. Williams sat in his room that night, staring at his phone as hateful comments flooded in. Amanda came in quietly and sat beside him. Williams, she said softly, don't let this break you. You know who you are. He didn't answer. I thought I had left the past behind. She reached out, taking his hand. The truth always wins. You taught me that. He looked up at her, his eyes wet. Then why does it hurt so much? Amanda smiled sadly. Because you're human. 2 days later, the front gate burst open as police vehicles pulled up. Johnson came out in disbelief. What is this? The lead officer stepped forward. Chief Johnson, we have a warrant to search your property. We received a report linking your adopted children to a missing gold case belonging to one Mr. Desmond. Amanda gasped. What? That's not true. But the officers pushed past them, searching rooms, drawers, closets, until one of them called out, Sir, we found something. In the pub and the constable in Williams's room, inside his drawer, was a small gold wristwatch. Everyone stared in shock. That's not mine, Williams cried. I swear, I've never seen it before. Desmond walked in from behind the officers, pretending to look surprised. So it's true, he said slowly. I didn't want to believe it. Johnson turned to him sharply. You set this up. Desmond lifted his hands. Chief, please, let the police do their job. But Veronica saw it in his eyes, the same cold look Desmond had the day he mocked their kindness. The police took statements but left without arrests, pending investigation. Still, the damage was done again. Journalists camped outside the mansion, cameras flashing as if they were filming a movie. Inside, Williams sat on the floor, shaking. Sir, I swear I didn't. Johnson knelt in front of him, gripping his shoulder. I believe you, son, and I'll prove it. Amanda, standing near the window, whispered, He's trying to destroy us. That man won't stop until he wins." Johnson looked up at her. "Then he'll have to face a father's fight." His voice was low, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. The storm had returned. But this time, Johnson was ready to fight back. For days, the mansion felt like a place under siege. Reporters crowded at the gate. Rumors spread online that Chief Johnson's fortune came from money laundering, and that his adopted children were fronts for illegal deals. Johnson ignored the noise, but every night he sat alone in his study, staring at the framed photo of Williams and Amanda smiling beside him. He had seen many storms in business betrayal, lawsuits, even political threats. But this one cut deeper. This one was personal. Veronica entered quietly one night, carrying a tray of tea. "You haven't slept in 2 days," she said gently. He gave a faint smile. "I can't, Veronica. Someone out there thinks kindness is weakness." Veronica placed the tea beside him and rested her hand on his shoulder. "Then show them what true strength looks like. The same strength that made you stop your car for 2 children in the rain." Johnson nodded slowly. "You're right." That night, something changed inside him. He called his private investigator. "I want everything on Desmond. His bank accounts, his calls, his driver, his lawyer. Every lie he has told me for the last 5 years." "Yes, Chief," the man said. "Give me 48 hours. Meanwhile, Williams was struggling at the aviation school. The news had reached campus. Students whispered behind his back. Some laughed when he walked past. His instructors treated him differently, too carefully polite, but distant. One evening after class, Williams sat alone in the locker room, staring at his flight badge. His dream, the one he had worked for, was slipping away. Amanda called him. "Williams, are you okay?" He hesitated. "I don't think I can go back there tomorrow, Amanda. Everyone looks at me like I'm a thief, then look back at them like a man who knows the truth," she said firmly. "Johnson believes in you. So do I. Don't let them win." Her voice steadied him. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath and said, "All right. Tomorrow I'll stand tall." He didn't know Amanda was fighting her own battles. Someone had hacked into her university account, sending fake messages to her professors, claiming she cheated on her exams. The dean called her in for questioning. When she walked into his office, she saw Desmond's scar-faced man waiting by the window. He smirked at her. "What is he doing here?" she demanded. The dean frowned. "He claims to represent a private donor who has been supporting your scholarship. Is that true?" Amanda shook her head. "I've never seen him before." The man laughed quietly. "You don't remember me, Amanda? Maybe I should remind you of your uncle's business." Her heart dropped. She realized then this wasn't about Johnson or Williams. This was revenge from her past, weaponized through Desmond. She stood up. "Sir, this man is lying. I've never taken a bribe or cheated on anything." The dean hesitated. Something about Amanda's courage, her trembling but determined voice, made him pause. "Leave," he said to the man. "Now." The man glared but left silently, brushing past Amanda with a whisper. "Tell your rich father, he can't hide you forever." The next evening, Johnson's investigator returned with files thick as phone books. Johnson flipped through them, his face tightening with every page. "He forged transactions in my company's name," he said in disbelief. "He used my trust to hide his own crimes." The investigator nodded. "He planned to destroy your public image so the board would remove you, then take over your shares." Johnson stood slowly. "He targeted my family because he couldn't touch me in business." He clenched his jaw. Not anymore. 3 nights later, Johnson called a press conference. Cameras filled the mansion's courtyard, just as they had when the scandal broke, but this time, Johnson stood tall in a dark blue agbada, Veronica by his side, Williams and Amanda behind them. He walked up to the podium. The crowd hushed. "My name is Chief Johnson," he began. "Weeks ago, I was accused of sheltering thieves and liars. Tonight, I come not to defend myself, but to expose the truth." He raised a folder in his hand. "This contains proof that my former business partner, Mr. Desmond, embezzled company funds, laundered money through false accounts, and planted evidence in my home. He used lies to destroy the reputation of 2 innocent children whom my wife and I love as our own." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "These 2, Johnson said, turning to Williams and Amanda, were orphans. One worked at a construction site, dreaming of flying planes. The other lost her parents to greed. On a rainy night, I met them. I didn't know their past. I only saw hearts that refused to give up. And today, I am proud to call them my children." The audience broke into whispers. Cameras flashed wildly. Reporters scribbled fast. Then, Johnson dropped the real blow. "We have handed all evidence to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Mr. Desmond will be answering for his crimes." As if on cue, sirens blared outside. 2 police vans pulled up. Officers marched in front of the entire press corps, they escorted a shocked Desmond out of his car in handcuffs. Williams stared, stunned. Amanda clutched Veronica's arm, trembling. Desmond turned toward Johnson, rage burning in his eyes. "You think you've won, Johnson? This isn't over." Johnson met his gaze coldly. "It ended the day you tried to break the innocent. In the days that followed, everything changed. News outlets reversed their headlines. Billionaire cleared of all allegations. Adopted children vindicated. The power of kindness. Chief Johnson's story inspires the nation." Williams returned to aviation school, greeted this time with applause from his classmates. Even his instructors shook his hand. Amanda's university held a public event honoring her courage, awarding her a scholarship extension for outstanding conduct. But the greatest moment came a year later. Williams graduated as the best student pilot in his class. The entire Johnson family attended the ceremony. When he was called to the stage, he paused, holding the microphone with trembling hands. "I stand here today because one man saw me, not as a street boy, but as a dream worth saving," he said. "That night in the rain, when I gave away my cardigan, I thought I was losing warmth. But God used that small act to light a fire that would never go out." The hall erupted in applause. A month later, Amanda graduated as the top student in software engineering. When she gave her speech, she looked directly at Williams and smiled. "Some kindnesses are too powerful to fade," she said. "They grow, they heal, and sometimes they fall in love." The audience cheered. Johnson and Veronica held hands, tears glistening in their eyes. Sandra started working in one of the best private hospitals in Lagos, and her connection with Williams, whom she shared the same story with, and soon find they both have feelings for each other. While they feared they would be opposed, became they were both adopted by the same parents, but they couldn't deny their deeper feelings for each other. One evening at the mansion's garden, Williams summoned the courage, knelt down and proposed to her, and with tears, Sandra accepted. "We started in the rain," he said, "but I want us to end in sunshine. Will you marry me?" Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, Williams, 1,000 times yes." Their adoptive father, Johnson, first opposed the idea, but after his wife intervened, he accepted their relationship. Despite the negative comments of people, Williams and Sandra got married in an extravagant wedding, and Johnson led them down the aisle with tears. Jerry and Jessica, now 4 years old, danced throughout the wedding, but the greatest test of their love came after the wedding. They couldn't give birth, despite declaring medically fit, and nothing was wrong with them. Williams and Sandra decided to stand by each other, taking a lesson from their adoptive parents, who gave birth after 10 years of their marriage. Months turned into years and no child came. Doctors always repeat the same thing: nothing was wrong. Both were healthy. Yet every passing month weighed heavier than the last. Some nights, Amanda would sit by the window, watching the rain. Williams would join her silently, his hand finding hers. "Maybe God wants us to wait," she would whisper, forcing a smile. One night, she couldn't hold back the tears anymore. "Williams," she said softly, "what if the wait never ends? What if we never have children?" Williams turned to her, his face filled with quiet pain, but also deep peace. He took her hands in his. "Then we'll still have each other," he said gently. When Chief Johnson and Veronica waited 10 years, they never stopped believing. But they also never stopped loving. If our miracle doesn't come soon, we'll still love louder. We'll still stand by each other. Because what made us a family wasn't blood, it was love. Amanda broke down in his arms, sobbing quietly. "You mean that? With every breath?" Williams whispered. "If children come, I'll thank God. But if not, you'll always be my answered prayer." She smiled through her tears, resting her head on his chest. "Then that's enough for me too." They prayed together that night, not just for a child, but for peace, for joy, and for love that wouldn't fade. What is your view about this story? Do you think it's right for Williams and Sandra to get married despite having the same adoptive parents? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.